What is different about your product?
You got a story to tell, something gonna connect to somebody else.
How to actually run a business versus having a vision for a business.
A lot of people come to me and they say they're scared to take that next leap.
Visual design is always going to be driven by the vision.
And I just was like, how do I do this?
What am I adding that they don't have?
Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint. Welcome back to the Brand Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Dana Ammons, and today we have a special guest with us, Jorge Perez. Now, Jorge is a fantastic and has a fantastic background, one that I really want to spend a lot of time talking about today. And I'm actually going to be joined in this interview by our executive producer and today front of the screen co-host, Heloise Lanoix. And you know Heloise from her fantastic work on all things that is our Brand Blueprint podcast. And this also will constitute a first for the Brand Blueprint, which is our first international interview where we have both our guest and our executive producer calling in and broadcasting from Spain. So we cannot wait to get this interview started. Heloise, I'll hand it over to you to further introduce us to our wonderful guests and get us started this morning.
Thank you, Dana. We're going to start with the rapid fire questions to try to get to know Jorge a little bit better for our viewers on screen. So are you ready?
Sure, go ahead.
We're ready.
So starting easy, coffee or tea?
I'm multi always, so coffee when I need it. So I usually don't take coffee. But when I need it, like a Red Bull, I take coffee. But just like tea in the mornings.
All right. Best concert that you've seen in the last 3 years?
I have a kid of 8 years old, so that's my prehistoric life when I used to go to concerts. So that's a complicated one. Last concert, maybe. So sad. I don't have an answer.
Right.
No, well, hey, let's flip it. As a father of an 8-year-old or once an 8-year-old who's now a 22-year-old, let me ask you this: since you do a lot of car time with your son, favorite song to play in the car with your son?
Gigantic from Texas. And
do you sing it? Do you sing it along with him?
Yeah, gigantic. Of course, that's making me think. The last concert was a Saturday, 8 in the morning, 8:30 with my kid. He wake up that day at 6:30. So after 2 hours, I said, "Man, you take your drums, I take my djembe, and we was put in Nirvana, and we make a concert together."
Oh, nice!
Was the last concert we did.
All right.
Nice.
Okay, well, this one's a more international one. So since I'm in the Barcelona Mediterranean side of the pond, do you take siestas?
Not really, because I'm hyperactive, but I think it's necessary to demonstrate. Everyone in the world should need a nap, but only a 10 minutes nap, 15 minutes nap.
15-minute nap maximum. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm around like a 20-minute napper myself.
Nice thing. In Brazil, there is people that have a small thing from yoga under the tables, and companies give that time. And you have a yoga thing underneath, and you sleep under the tables. I saw that in Sao Paulo. I was shocked.
Wow.
And speaking to your international lifestyle, what is your favorite city that you've stayed or lived in?
Great question.
That's funny. When I was a teenager, I said, I don't know why, from serials or TVs, I dream to live in San Francisco, Barcelona, or Rio de Janeiro, and I've been in the three, and it's amazing. I feel that I can live there, but my dream should be Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro is like urban and salvage nature together.
Nice. Yeah, I really would like to end up in Brazil eventually. And another question for the international lifestyle. When we met, you introduced yourself as Jorge with an H, and I see that you have it spelled with a J today. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. I was my first job was my first job was in Italy in a Benetton Research Center, and I was in an international environment. And I said, "My name is Jorge." This is how Spanish people pronounce Jorge,
Mhm.
and the people says, eh, eh, or, or, "Orge." So I understood that the world have different even capacities. So the first of all, the only ones that says is the Arabs, but Arabs associate the Jor with an H. Sorry, with an H. Italians don't have so many words with a J. Okay, in their vocabulary they have Jacopo and two more, but they pronounce like this, Jacopo. So I have a folder, lovely folder with post-its, with invoices, with faxes because I'm old, with all the ways that people call me. So I understood that the most common answer was Horge, but I have notes from Asian people saying Jorge, Horhey, and the funniest thing, I have a fax saying in Italian, all'attenzione di Orge, Orge, and Orge, you can imagine what it means. So
Yeah.
somebody was politically correct, saw the fax and said, and put an H on the front. So
I thought they were
I didn't know-
faxing Shrek.
Yeah, so you realize when you're in international world, even the way to say your name is a problem. So then I decided Jorge with an H was a good name. It was a kind of a brand identity. No, as a designer, there is so many Jorge, and Perez is really common. So Jorge with an H was good. I've been designer. I've been in magazines. I came to Barcelona. I began to work in a ID International Design School. So I was keep going with an H. But 2 years ago, I arrived to Microsoft and the consultants to be a manager. So I'm a serious manager in a serious multinationals, and the people says, "Man, H perfect, creative people. You're a manager. You are called Jorge." And I said, "Okay." So it's part of my life. H, creative guy. J, as a manager. For the long answer.
I completely understand your struggles with the H, but in the opposite direction. Since I was born and raised in New York, Americans don't know what to do with the silent H. So I've also been called just any variety of ways to say my name. So it's pronounced Heloise in French, and I've gotten Heloise, Heloise, Heloise. It's like any way you could like get that. I got it. Yeah. I got it every single time. All right.
Yeah, as Americans, we want to pronounce the H. It is so hard for us to just not pronounce the first letter at all.
Look, Italy is a good example of that. They said, I watched a film of Hollywood. And you said, Bollywood from India? No, Hollywood from California. So in Italians, they don't pronounce H in general. The maximum, my name is Jorge, but they usually say Hollywood. It's not Hollywood.
Hollywood.
So it's perfect for you, as you find your country.
Exactly.
Wow.
Let's end it on an easy one, which is, what is your sport of choice?
Basketball. Absolutely. Magic Johnson
Any
forever.
Specific team?
Magic Johnson, Lakers, until LeBron James went to that team, and I said, no, man, I hate LeBron James and Michael Jordan. They are those individual guys thinking about themselves. So I used to be Lakers, and now I think it will be Sanders, Oklahoma City Sanders. And in Europe, I'm from Barcelona, Juventud. I love European basket. I think now is something that's going up.
Yeah, you guys have a fantastic basketball tradition, right? From Barcelona standpoint, I think there's 2 or 3 NBA players or Hall of Famers that have reigned from Barcelona. So really, really dope.
Yeah, and it's a really nice basketball. It's classical basketball. I call it like the 80s in NBA is right now in Europe.
Yep. No, a great point.
All right. I think that wraps up our rapid fire questions. Thank you.
No, thanks for that. And now we jump into the meat and potatoes of the interview. And I tell you what, Jorge, I've been really, really sleepless over the last day or two thinking about all of the things that I wanted to ask. And I know we have a compressed amount of time, but the first thing I want to start with is your fantastic background. And we talked a lot a couple of weeks ago when we first connected about the diversity of your background and how you've been able to marry kind of creative, right, alongside of technical, alongside of business applications. But Tell our audience how you got to that point. How did you get started in this fantastic career path that you've headed down?
So maybe, and this is part of diversity, since I was 14 years old, I began to love black culture. I mean, I've been reading Malcolm X, and I've been loving basketball, NBA, and reading a lot of things, watching all films from that movement. And I was in Seattle living, and for the summers, and I'm passing a long time. I mean, even 6 months. So when I returned back, is when I begin to realize that I was not anymore that standard European, but I was not American. So my soul was playing basketball in the courts all day, and with my X caps and that. But I was feeling really European in my mentality, as an intellectual point of view. You know, Europeans are sometimes even too much. So is what I begin to realize, like, wow, the world is huge, and I can move around and mix in things. And my reference has been always Marco Polo. So I was trying to be a Marco Polo or Leonardo da Vinci, you know, these humanistic guys. How you do that in this years that it's complicated. There's not that job right now. So I've been always trying. Maybe the clue of my answer should be trying to escape from routines or things that I know already. In terms of if I'm in the same work, changing sectors. If I'm able, changing works, no? Similar. So I've been a designer, but I've been the dean of a design school. It's related, so I can make that change, but it's completely different. Or being a designer in USA is completely different in Spain, or being in Benetton, that is an international environment, but in a really tiny city. That reminds me of the tiny city there where I used to live in Seattle, because I was in a place called Auburn. You understand we are all the same, but we are all the different. So you can make paths. It's not easy, but you can make paths to make those diversities if you focus on be diverse.
And I mean, obviously, it took a lot of fluid, ability to deal with change. And, across even your young life, obviously, you were going from Seattle back and forth to Europe. So talk about as you entered adulthood and you were exiting, a high school in your formal years. What was it that drove you to kind of focus on your creative, skills and talents as you went into college? And then how did you see that translating into your adult life?
But that's funny because always came the background or a cultural background of the place where you are. So, for example, Spain is Europe, but has been coming out of a dictator until 74. So imagine there was no hippies, no 80s in a certain way.
Right.
So creativity was not something that exists in our environment in Spain. But the funny thing is, somebody with the same age in Italy was used to that. So I was feeling that I was a creative person, but there was no space in the school. In fact, I repeat 2 years of school, and until I found one thing called design. But imagine, there was open the first design school in Madrid, and I remember going that place and saying, I sent the newspaper and says, okay, that's my way. I mean, a place where I kind of apply my creativity. And I've been always related with physicals, with the space. So I begin with that. But really easy and really fast, I begin to go classes from graphic design. At the same time, intellectually, I've been really open. So I used, from that period, I used to love mathematics and not mathematics, economics. My father was in economics. So I begin to realize and to give value that you are different, you are unique. And I'm different to the other students. And I realized that even in the creative environment, there is a standard creative people and there is different people that at the same time permits me to understand that there is standard business guys and unique businessmen. So creativity is not only for creativity schools or creative people. In fact, there is a lot of technicians and really closed mind designers. As in the other things. Maybe they are less close mind, but that's something that I begin to realize. I've been always, my phrase is, I've been always currently and constantly rare.
currently and constantly rare.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, creativity combined with a passion for economics, I would say is definitely rare, right? In my experience with creatives and my experience with finance and economic professionals, the two don't typically cross. So to your point, that is a very polar opposite set of passions. How do you marry those passions and make those really, show up in your day-to-day work?
Was difficult. I mean, even in the university to find my spot. So even I was trying to make, as I told you, exams from other parts, or trying to find, let's make a exchange final thesis, and maybe the clue was that I make a Erasmus, something really nice in a value in Europe, that is you interchange a university but in a different culture. That's the potential of Europe, and then we talk about that. That's
It's like a
potential
European
of
study
Europe.
abroad program where you get sent to different schools in different cities and different countries, and it's really cool.
But that's the good thing. In Europe, you make 2,000 kilometers and you pass through 10 cultures. No,
wow.
In USA, no. So I mean, you need to find the potentials of your market or whatever. So I went to Italy and I understood one thing about who was managing guys as Leonardo da Vinci, as I told you, Marco Polo. And I realized that those creative guys, humanistic, they was a business oriented. I mean, Marco Polo was making a bunch of money because going to the other side of the world and bringing, I make a bunch of money. Leonardo da Vinci, there was people behind him. There was Medici. And the Medici, I was always saying, I realized this another phrase that I love, that is managing the poetry and the money together. And these guys, those things, Leonardo was doing the same thing. No, I mean, I'm researching and drawing, and then my boss, because I have a boss that loves my drawings and talk about, he said, hey man, I need to conquer a country because I need more money. Okay, I will design a machine. We will kill those guys, so business thinking, and then I return to my birds and my drawings. So that capacity of Italians was like, that's my path.
So when you started out, you were studying graphic design, like pure design, but you weren't necessarily interested in being a pure designer from the beginning. You were interested in having kind of fingers in many pies and seeing how you can combine things, no?
No, at the beginning, not really. It was more like make tangible things. And what I realized about business guys is that they are pragmatic and tangible. They don't talk about, no, man, let's make money. No, but I don't care about money, but let's make a company. So I began to realize that creative guys was sometimes so much theoretical, so much that in fact they need a manager sometimes to sell their things and finish their things. No, you finish your paint, you finish your catalog. So I was a pragmatic guy in designers, and I realized indirectly that was like I'm more a design manager than a designer. So my path was from graphic design, interior design to design manager, to begin to understand another thing that was, wow, create a company is a huge creativity moment. I mean, it's not easy to create a company. Make a typography is a simple creativity process and project in compare of let's make a company. I mean, but it's because you create it from zero, like you create a typography. So that suddenly makes me another moment of let's go more to the management again, from design manager to let's be entrepreneur.
I was going to ask how that connected to Fun Labs, which is where you are currently, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Fun Lab is my brand. Maybe that intellectual part, as I said, and this creativity is that my life, my professional career is a project in itself. So always I use triangles, so there's no A, not even A and B. There's A, B, and C, and you can move it. So always I've been trying to have my own brand. Before it was called Mediatica with the two guys in Madrid. Then I created Fun Lab. Then to make design and design strategy, and it's what I do as Fun Lab, one of the realities. But then always I've been trying to develop a consultant part that can be under the voice of Fun Lab, but it's different. It's in the back office. No, you work for others with work inside a company. I mean, I was talking the other day with some old friends from Fabrica in Treviso in Venice that from 800 fabricantes, is called like that because the place was Fabrica, only two we was employers as a inside of a company, having your schedule, right? From 8 hours of work, your 40 hours, your pass to go inside of the door. So I've been trying to combine those three things in the different aspects. I don't care if it's in academic or it was about design or it was about industry. So maybe I
I
don't
All
know
love
if
right.
I
that.
understood. I answered your question or I invented.
No, you did. I mean, and it actually leads to another question, Jorge, because one of the fascinating parts of your background, and you kind of mentioned earlier, you've created and started brands, right? And there's two, parts of it. There's the creative side, there's the business side. You've also run your own brand and endeavored to sell products, et cetera. And we talked about that experience. Share a little bit with our audience your perspective of starting a business in Europe versus starting a business in the US. And I know you didn't start the business in the US, but you've lived here. You're very familiar with this environment. Talk a little bit about your experience being a brand and a business owner, a startup owner there, and how you perceive kind of the challenges in Europe versus US.
I think there are big difference. The first one is that mm, Europeans are not that individual that makes that you are less entrepreneur because like being entrepreneur is like you go straight on. Um, this is more about the team, the society, the group. I mean, even the way it has been created. No, I mean, you go to the
Hmm.
West alone, and here, I mean, always has been a team, a group. That is from the school. I mean, I've been in the high school there. It's like, hey, what is your opinion? Tell about you. Develop your individuality, your
Yeah.
way to think. In Europe, that's less
Mm.
valuable. Another thing is that in American culture is more about verticals,
Hmm.
profiles. I remember, I mean, you are good in drums, go for it. And I've
Hmm.
been meeting guys with 12 years old. It was incredible.
Hmm.
Maybe you ask about who, or I remember my host father told me one thing that was, we was talking and he don't know who was Platon. And for me as a 17 years old was like, well, because he's good in something deep. That's
Yeah.
something really rare in Europe. Maybe you don't, you know who is Platon here, but you are not going deep. I'm
Right.
from the school, so it's a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you
Europe
know
is
what? And
more.
on that point, though, Jorge, just not to interrupt you, but you make a great point
Sure.
because I think Americans perceive that the ability to specialize, right, is what you're kind of talking to. Like we really push specialization in this country, the ability to just focus in on one niche, one particular skill set, or one passion, and just make that your life's, focus. And I think what I hear you saying is in Europe, not as much, but and partially because in the educational framework, that's not necessarily encouraged to just run out there and just kind of do your own thing, right, and kind of just focus on this small little niche skill set or passion. But now that things have kind of globalized, and you're seeing more and more kind of call it American um, business practices and cultural practices kind of leak out to the rest of the world. Are you seeing in Europe now in the next wave and the next generation of entrepreneurs and younger people in Europe this passion to actually go out and be more specialized and niche focused instead of just kind of going and doing what your parents always, kind of did from an occupation standpoint?
Yeah, I mean the entrepreneurship part is more and more because I mean the world now the world is completely open and I
Yeah.
remember because USA is really different. I mean I remember a guy from Denver saying I cannot in 90s I can don't know enough about Barcelona because I mean he made 2,000 kilometers and is still in the same culture. No, so USA there is three big things. So in terms of entrepreneur, yes. The other good thing is that I think is the perfect moment to mix those two things. So it's not anymore right or wrong, bad. Each one of the cultures have a potential. So Americans will be always the best ones about make a niche and explode it. So even
Hmm.
sometimes they create their own new market. But
Hmm.
from the other side, for mature markets, I think are more prepared, the Europeans.
Wow, that was a really important point. Can we hear that again?
Americans will be always the best ones about making niche and explode it. So even sometimes they create their own new market. But from the other side, for mature markets, I think are more prepared, the Europeans.
Yep.
For the same thing, because they already
Yep.
understood that even about the same sector, there are different approaches. No, so
Yep.
I always have said this: if an American company wants to go global, or
Yep.
he create a new market, so they don't have competency, or if not, will be a difficult thing for a startup or a mature market because they don't understand other cultures.
Yep.
They don't talk other cultures, and they don't understand how is another ways. No, for an European, imagine if you've been already from here to Italy is different, then France, and then it's completely chaos. One more level, I mean, one element more of chaos. We have already 27 in European Union, so go to another 28 market for me is simple.
Yeah.
So in fact, I always have said that if I'm an investor, if I was working in an accelerator, I will work in terms of I want a European CEO when the company is mature.
Yeah.
For the startup scale up, American guy. For to put it in the right place to make it mature and keep going, European, absolutely.
European.
It's not right or wrong.
I love that. It's almost stages and phases, right? Versus right or wrong. It's where are you at in your brand and product growth journey.
And speaking of that comparison, since I actually met you in an educational setting, it kind of ties into my question, which would be, what do you think the differences are or even the similarities are between when you're creating your own project or you're working with a company to create innovation and entrepreneurship and like a startup environment versus when you're trying to teach students to be able to do that on their own? Or in our case, since you were a mentor during a project where I had to create my own product and service, is how do you encourage innovation specifically in a European setting? Or create innovation, create support entrepreneurship in settings when it's teaching others to do it versus when you have the responsibility on yourself to do it?
Wow. In a certain way, there's more than one question there to make me think. First of all, and I don't have that experience, but I would love, as we were saying before, not try to make the different. I've been mentoring in Latin America and in Spain and in Italy, and in a certain way, European environment because there was a sense from all there. But for example, I've never been mentoring in USA, so I don't know what is that, and I cannot answer you to that part. But how to teach those things? Always is said that is in another triangle that is for me is technical approach, business approach, and creativity approach. Those three is that the technical spot is not the important one, and usually young people focus on what they love. I put an example even for me. No, I mean, I used to love the spaces. Since I was 14 years old, I used to make with Lego houses for my Playmobiles, and then I was not playing with the Playmobiles because I love to make the space. Yeah. So when you're passionate, you are more focused on the technical thing. So I need to bring the students out to that triangle and see the triangle from a perspective. No, I said that when you're in one of the corners of the angle, you need to look to the other side. So it's not anymore about look in the point. If you're in technical, no, look the other two corners. So it's one of the things that I was trying to do with them, and always trying to move between pragmatic, that the students are not pragmatic because they love their thing. No, I mean what they expect is that somebody pay for their passion, but they are not pragmatic. Except some students of business, but even in that, their passion is give orders sometimes. So bring out and says, be pragmatic, but from the other side, give value to the user, to the humans. I always said that UX is not UX only digital. It's UX about, let's put the H, human experience.
Heloise, can you bring that back one more time? We need to hear that again.
I always said that UX is not UX only digital. It's UX about, let's put the H, human experience. I mean, how is the human experience of the other person, the other student? The other, so even as a teacher or as a mentor, you need to say, how is the experience of that human? So it's the first thing I try to. And with that pragmatic part. So it's like, in a certain way, it's be gentle and be the other, no? But think about you, but give you this pragmatic point of view. And if you have that balance, I think you give a value because at the end is your experience that you try to transmit, and it's not right or wrong.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite type of project to be working on in terms of that balance between being pragmatic and the creativity and the technical aspects?
Projects that are complex. I mean, that's I mean, I always said I'm specialized in complexity because what I understood is when you've been a creative guy, creativity is about no maps, no briefs, no maps to where are you arriving, no? So you are used to do that and you have it in your soul. So this VUCA, or that's fun. In the business, people try to put names under the things, and it's like, so creative people is really prepared for complexity. And so my favorite projects, complex projects, phygital projects, so are physical but digital, multi-country, no? Like we were saying, a company that you're trying to develop in three cultures or in three markets or a product and a service. So maybe I will call and projects. I said,
Mm-hmm.
no, so it's not this versus this, is this and this. Okay, I'm an
And
ant
this.
man.
The complex projects. And again, you being a unique creative that has a passion for tackling the most complex and data driven projects is definitely an anomaly. And I think again, more of a testament to your uniqueness and your experience in the field. Look, I know we're coming close on time, and I want to make sure we give you enough time to actually share where our listeners can find more information about Fun Lab, how they could potentially collaborate or work with you. I know you said you mentor businesses across Europe. All of our listeners, a lot of our listeners come from the US side of the pond. And I know there are definitely some businesses and brand owners that would love to collaborate with you in the future. So if you don't mind, if you could share where people can find you and reach out to you after the show, that would be great.
So maybe in different ways, as I've been current
Yep.
with that during the conversation. So, for example, in terms of design projects, I have this company that is called Kelera that we make like a price related with design, so from different aspects. Um, then so it's more this design Jorge with an
Yep.
H. Then there is this part of E plus E. Let me share with you. That is this part of projects that I've been developing in this academic, as I said, no. So that I've been developing with business schools
Nice.
or design schools. That's the
Yep.
funny thing, no, because I'm in not anymore. I'm ex-designer and I'm not a businessman, so that's part. And of course, in terms of a consultancy, that part of Fan Lab, and I recommend to see some of the examples that maybe they can find there in terms of different projects. Always with this part of pragmatic, no, and maybe the last thing is no matter about how much money. So, for example, for entrepreneurs, no, I don't have money, man. I've been doing projects from 1 million euros expended in 10 hours for the Americans Cup
Yep.
event, and projects that I've been expending with 3,000 euros. You can see in E plus the lab that I was making a solar energy bus stop with
Yep.
no more than 3,000 euros and is in the
Wow.
streets of Barcelona. No, so
Wow.
uh, I this part of being pragmatic and but visionary and trying to find the way is like there is no money. Well, that's an extra barrier as whatever other thing. No, as was happening at the beginning. My computer doesn't work. Problem solving. So money must be part of the problem solving.
Yep. No, and I love that. I mean, we are definitely big believers in finding partners through the brand blueprint that can provide services across a wide range of budgets, right? We realize that a lot of brand owners and founders and entrepreneurs don't have the funding, don't have the large budgets, don't have the access to millions of dollars to just simply jump into the game. And so we really appreciate when we do have guests that come on the show that have ability to work with people with smaller budgets. We will be posting Jorge's information on our brand page. So if you want to go find more information about Jorge Fun Lab and how to connect with Jorge, go out to www.thebrandblueprint.biz, not .com, .biz. And then lastly, we also will be sharing information through our social media posts, linking back to Jorge's profile as well. So I know you can find him out on LinkedIn under Jorge Perez. So make sure you go out there and send him an invite. Again, Jorge, thank you for joining us on the Brand Blueprint. We really, really appreciate the time today. We know you got a couple of minutes before you got to get out of there and grab your son, but we look forward to seeing you again on the show. We're going to be following your continued success and sharing the innovative work that you're going to continue to do with our audience. And we'd love to have you on again in the future.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And part of this circular and rare thing was really nice that long time ago, some years ago, I was the master and Heloise was an apprentice.
Yeah.
And now for me was the opposite. She was the master of the podcast and stream and this kind of formats. And suddenly I was
Full
apprentice.
circle.
Thank you so much for both of you, and good luck with the project because it looks so excited to know more about
No, we appreciate it. We are excited that you are our very first European based interview. More to come, obviously. But Spain is close to our heart, given that the fact that it is the home base of our executive producer and creative extraordinaire, Heloise Lanoix. So everybody, thanks again for tuning into the Brand Blueprint. Tune into our future episodes. If you want to find more information out about the show, check us out on thebrandblueprint.biz. Thanks and have a great one. Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.